Okay, so today I have a little practice for you. I'm going to start standing, but I'm going to invite you to either sit or stand or do whatever is comfortable for you. And as I start this practice, um, there's a few things I just want to discuss with you about myofascial yoga. That's a little bit different. My style is very invitational, and so I'm going to invite you to do certain movements, but I'm going to give you a broad range in which to practice. So there are no strict guidelines. And I ask that you honor your own body and don't push it. We're not about going to end range here. It's more about micro movements and subtle movements. And so as we begin, I'd just like to start with a grounding pose just to settle in. Had some technical difficulties this week, so this is for me as well as you. And I'm just going to take my hands and go bilaterally and have my thumbs up. And I invite you to do the same and just hug from either side. And you can cross whichever way feels comfortable for you. And we're going to be spending some time with breath today as well. So as you just feel the sensation of your palms right underneath your armpits, just sinking in. And as you follow your natural breath, you can just notice the rise and fall of your rib cage under your hands. You can do this with eyes open, eyes closed, standing or seated comfortably. Not forcing the breath, just noticing. And with the up and down rhythm of your breath, you may begin to notice if there are any sticking places. Maybe does one side move the same as the other? And at any time, you can release your arms. I have another way to check in with your ribs, and that's to put your hands on either side of your torso, on your rib cage. And again, just noticing normal breathing pattern. And what we can do here is now begin to consciously move our awareness to breathing into the belly so that your belly expands. And as you do, and you can exhale through your nose, through your mouth, whatever's comfortable for you. Just bringing your awareness more into expanding the belly and expanding the rib cage under your hands. And you may begin to decide to deepen your breath. And as you do, notice, just get curious about your rib cage. And again, sometimes it's easier to tune inward when we have our eyes closed. Just noticing. Does one side seem to expand farther than the other? And after doing several rounds of nice rib expanding, belly expanding breaths, We can now begin. Put our hands to the side. And what I'd like to do is experiment in opening up the side body. And if you think about the rib cage and the diaphragm, and just beginning to bend. And again, when we bend, it's a side bend, and you can do this standing, seated, kneeling, whatever is more comfortable to you. If you're kneeling and you need support under your knees, roll up a blanket or a yoga block. If you're seated on your knees, sometimes it's helpful to put blocks behind you. Whatever it is to make you most comfortable during this movement so that you're more inclined to be able to really feel into the sensations of the area that we're focusing on. So you're not worried about my legs are tired, my knees hurt, or anything like that. You want to get as comfortable as possible. And then you can begin to experiment with the arm. Just raise up really slowly and just notice. And you don't have to raise as high as I do, or you can, if you're really comfortable with this, you can go ahead and go into a slight bend. Just noticing this really subtle movement. And what other sensations are you noticing in your body? If there's any kind of pain, then change the movement. It doesn't have to be just up and down. It can be out to the side, to the front, or you can just begin to make circles. Just opening up the shoulder area. And again, if you have any places of restriction, then you make really bite-sized little micro movements. And you meet your body where it's at. These little subtle movements where you're still engaging muscles, fascia, can lead to pretty big changes in your body. And so whenever you're ready, and your shoulder might need a break, maybe it doesn't want to be up that long, there's always compression that you can do. And compression can be as light 5 grams, just a really gentle touch. Sometimes that compression can allow you to get better movement. Now returning to the breath, if you can bend to the side. And again, really slowly in a micro movement kind of way, noticing, is my neck, is my chin forward? Do I need to press my neck back so that my cervical spine is more in alignment? And just stop at a stretch that feels really good, not overstretching. If you go to the place where you feel like you're at an end range, I invite you to just back off a little. And return to your breath. And just allowing space in between your ribs. Just this subtle movement. And again, if your shoulder gets a little cranky, you can move it. Sometimes slight movements can allow you to go back into a pose and hold it longer. And whenever you need a rest, you can take one. And so I'm imagining my diaphragm being able to open up along the side body. And my ribs just getting a little more expanded and allowing my lung capacity to expand a little as well. And you can stay here for as long as you like. we are going to do is we're going to repeat it, the same thing on the other side. You could do a check-in again with the ribs. Do a couple more breaths. Notice if it feels expanded. A little less sticky. And whenever you're ready, you can begin to do the same thing on the other side. Just being gentle with your shoulder and exploring some arm movement, whatever that looks like to you. And down, back and forth, lateral. Some rotations. And these exercises are also a good way for people to settle into their bodies and notice things, not making them right or wrong, but just noticing. If you have a little crunching in your shoulders, or if you have notice that pain starts happening on one side as opposed to the other, then you can take that into your myofascial release sessions. Say, hey, this is what I'm noticing in my body. And just slowly begin whenever you're ready. Do little micro movement side bend. You can do it in a pulsing way. You can support your opposite hand on a yoga block or the floor. I'm doing mine as a fist, so not to put pressure on my wrist. And just, again, expanding the rib cage through the side body. Focusing on the breath. And using the imagery of your ribs expanding, your rib cage, making room for your lungs to expand more fully. And whenever you're ready, slowly come out of it. Maybe do a few more shoulder rolls, forward or backward. And now that we've stretched out the side body, how about stretching out the cervical spine? Just really, really gently. You can place one hand on the opposite side of your head and just create the slightest pressure of your head against your hand. Again, it's nice if your chin is back so that you're not having a forward-leaning head. Instead of being like this and bent, making sure your chin is back. Just a slight bend. And breathe into that area now, just like you breathed into your side body. Opening up cervical spine. You might even feel it going all the way down your shoulder, down your back. And remembering, not depressed, it's really softening and a subtle movement, subtle pressure. You can use your hand as pressure. If you have any cervical issues, then you would do this like such a micro movement, literally with your head, just like this, and pressing against your hand with barely a bend, barely any pressure, just a little bend. Always honoring your body. And again, imagining the breath. Breathing, just like you breathed into your side body, breathing into the side of your neck. Wherever you're ready, gently coming back to center. I'd like to explore. I'm going to stand again because that's where I started with the ribs. And I'm just going to see now if I notice any differences in the expansiveness of my ribs when I'm breathing. Maybe you notice just a subtle difference. Or maybe you notice much more expansiveness. And after 3 or 4 breaths, just breathing into your hands, breathing into your ribs more fully. From here, I'd just like to do some subtle movement now. In this movement, I'm just doing a little twist. But your movement might be like this. It might be like a slinky back and forth, or it might be twisting. But just moving your body in a way that feels good to you. We think of asanas and we think of prescribed postures, but we don't take into account that our body is not 1 or 2 dimensional directional. It's omnidirectional. It goes in every direction. Movement does not happen in straight lines or angles. And so just allowing your body to do movements that feel good to you, like when you get up in the morning and you do a nice stretch. And if you want a little spin on a traditional yoga pose, which would be chair pose, we're going to do it a little different. And just put a slight bend in the knees and just allow the arms to come up and back. It's a flying chair. Now I'm taking the balls of my feet and I'm rolling on them. I'm rolling back and forward and back and forward. I'm just playing with the movement, a traditional movement in a non-traditional way. You think of the strength, and after a while I can feel in my own body a little pull in my knees. I can feel my hamstrings strengthening and tightening as I'm rolling my feet back and forth. The bottom of my feet, all the joints are getting a nice little massage going back and forth on the run. You can do this for as long as you'd like, or you can explore different movements. Again, this is a nice tapping on the kidney meridian, gently rotating. And again, this, if you have restrictions in your spine, this might be a very subtle movement for you. Your movement, you can always do these seated, might just be a really subtle twist. We want to lubricate all the joints, and we want to not restrict any levels of movement, but recognizing that some movements can be very limited for people. So you just do like a really small range. And sometimes the back and forth, like a rocking motion, almost like a rebounding, just allows you to go a little bit further. And so, and when we think of traditional yoga classes, sometimes we're doing twists that are very, like ringing out the organs. And And if you have a compromised spine or you have injuries, that might not be the best thing for you. And so now that we've explored a little breath and a little movement, a little expanding our bodies, what we're going to do is set up for a supported shavasana, and we'll move the camera down so you can see I've got this set up here with a yoga mat and some blankets, and I have a rolled up yoga mat, and you can use any kind of supports. Let's see if I can get this at a better angle. So this is just a blanket that I folded and then folded back over. But I'm going to make it higher here. The rolled yoga mat is for my neck, but I could have used a rolled towel or blanket, sandbags. These feel really good on your neck as well. As a matter of fact, I think I'm going to swap out my yoga mat. And so take your time as I'm just setting up and going through this, and we'll just do a little supported shavasana. And what we're wanting is the upper body and the back to be higher than the lower body and supported. And what we're going to do is we're going to practice opening up this area, just laying in supine position. So once you've got your props, I invite you to find your way down to the mat. And it's okay. Let's see, actually, putting the yoga mat back. Yes, that's much more supportive of my neck. So you want your neck to be supported. Yoga mats are great for this. The extra ones, this one's not a full size, I cut it. And you can now, just wanting to make sure, so I'm going to move my blanket up because my thoracic spine needs more support. So I didn't need it under my sacrum or under my glutes. And this just, even no matter where you put your arms, just laying in the supported pose, your sternum, your chest, everything is more open simply by being supported. And so just begin to, you do a little rocking back and forth. If you're against the wall, you can push your feet against the wall, or I can just move my ankles up and down, and I can get the rocking going this way and that way. And that's called, that actually feels really good on my cervical spine with this yoga mat. But that's called rebounding in the John Barnes world. And it's a way of just allowing your body to settle in. It's like a rocking, almost like rocking a baby. And you can do it faster or slower. Just settling your body in. I like to do it side to side and allow my hips to settle into the mat. And take your hands and put them out to your side. And it doesn't matter if you're palms up or palms down, whatever feels good to you. You might want to put them out like the letter T, or go even farther behind your head. But you have to honor feelings and the sensations in your body, never compromising the integrity of your body. And now, I invite you to begin to become aware of your breath once again. And if you need to adjust any of the pillows or blankets at any time, feel free to do that. If you feel like you need more support in one area than another, just adjust as necessary. You might want to put your hands back on your rib cage, just to feel the rise and fall of your breath. You may want to incorporate any of the yogic breaths, like ocean breath or ujjayi. Ujjayi breath is like steaming up a mirror. Only you do it with your mouth closed. You can regulate the length of the breath. Just falling into your own rhythm. Honoring your body. Coming into a state of gratitude for this body that you have. And for all the amazing things your body does for you every day. And each breath imagining after today's practice having more and more capacity for breath, for higher functioning, less strain on your heart as it pumps and oxygenates the blood more easily. With every breath, a new awareness of an expanded lung capacity. You choose to stay in this place as long as you like. Whenever you're ready, you can find your way back up to a seated position. Stop the recording now.